that mainstream media has sold you a box of rocks. It's time to tune into the Kate Daly Show, America's newest addiction. The show starts now.
You know, my mother used to say a long time ago, whenever there would be any really catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers, you know, even just on the sidelines. That's why I think that if news programs could make a conscious effort of showing rescue teams, of showing medical people, anybody who is coming into a place where there's a tragedy, to be sure that they include that. Because if you look for the helpers, you'll know that there's hope.
Welcome, Kate Daly Show, and of course, so happy to have you listening today. And like I said, over 26 million on podcast of this here live show, and I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you sharing the show. This is very grassroots, and it counts on you. We don't do any advertising whatsoever, so I really appreciate you getting the word out. And also, I have a great guest, and so we have to get to him quick. We've got limited time, and let me just tell you, Chris Burgard, director, did the movie with The War on Truth with Nick Searcy. And let me just tell you that they just showed this movie in Congress, and I cannot wait for the reaction. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Every day's Christmas, Kate. Every day.
Every day's Christmas. I'm going to start waking up and saying that. I'm serious, because it's real heavy right now in the news cycles.
Unfortunately, it is. And let me tell you, when you wake up every day and you greet people like that, it does make a difference.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. I love that. You know, you've been a director of many films. Many films put a target on your back, like Border and so many great things. And you've been up against censorship. You have, it's a rough ride, isn't it, when you do not do what they want you to do project wise?
You know, it is, but it's also been blessed. You know, I grew up in Wisconsin my dad was a vet and a cop, and I was a ballet dancer, ended up in Hollywood, and had a great, fun career acting and doing stuff. Mm-hmm. But I got blacklisted when I made the movie Border, and I couldn't understand why. I mean, people that I knew for 20 years wouldn't talk to me, and that set me on a journey of telling the truth. And I've been blessed to be in places like Central America, and they tried to overthrow a government, being on both sides of the border for the better part of 20 years. And in Washington, D.C. on a day that was a day in history. So I've just been blessed.
Love it. Can you please describe The War on Truth to people, this film?
So The War on Truth is our second movie about January 6th. The first one we did was called Capital Punishment. It was probably the most censored movie of 2022. I didn't get an Oscar for directing that, but I did get investigated by the FBI.
Wow.
Which was a big part of our decision to make the sequel. People had asked us to for a while, but we didn't know what the story was. And then when the FBI started investigating me and the pressure put on my family, it was like, okay, guys, if they're doing this to a 60-year-old award-winning filmmaker who comes from a law enforcement family, whose dad actually graduated from the 109th session of the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, what are they doing to other people out there? Mm-hmm. And so that was the follow-up for the film. And what you're going to see in this movie, I mean, it's not just, people lose their lives, they lose their families, their jobs, their homes, they lose their unborn children. Mm-hmm. But what you're also going to see in this movie is, beyond a doubt, it shows you how this was a setup operation run with military precision, and how this administration and the media has been lying for 3.5 years to the American people in just a huge cover-up. And the way things work is big doors open and close on small hinges. And the hinge that everything falls apart on is J6. Because when folks watch this movie, especially people on the left, their heads explode.
Right.
We learned in the first movie, liberals that watched the movie, they didn't cry when Ashley Babbitt got killed, but they cried when her dog died. Weird. And this movie, War on Truth, takes you on an emotional journey. And when folks see, a single mom from a biracial family from Minnesota get beat till her head is like a bloody pumpkin 31 times after she tried to stop people from attacking the Capitol. When they really see what happened to Ashley Babbitt, who's a 14-year military veteran, she's attacking the biggest agent provocateur that was in the Capitol that day, trying to break the glass. His name is Zachary Allen. She punched him in the face, trying to get him to stop, knocked his glasses off just seconds before she was shot to death, and just minutes after she had begged the police to bring in reinforcements. I mean, this is how they're lying to you. And there was a fella, see if you remember, there was a fella named Joseph Goebbels. They used to say, you make a lie big enough and tell it often enough, it becomes truth to the state. That's happening here. And even if you haven't seen the movie, let's just take one lie that they're saying over and over. 5 law enforcement officers died on January 6th.
Nope.
You still hear Biden say that. That's a complete lie. Officer Brian Sicknick, our investigation, was a wonderful man, died of natural causes. He was not beaten to death with a fire extinguisher from MAGA people like the media said. The other 4 police officers that died weeks and months after January 6th from suicide. The people who died that day was Kevin Greason, Benjamin Phillips, Roseanne Boyland, and Ashley Babbitt. And all these deaths need to be investigated way more than they have. When they see the reality of what that day is, it shocks people. And so you have to ask yourself, why would the top echelons of our government be lying so hard about what really happened if they weren't part of the cover-up?
So what happened when you showed it to Congress?
Oh my goodness. Well, it was outstanding. We were invited there by Congressman Troy Nehls, who's out of here. He's out of the Houston area here in Texas. And you have to understand this man, because if you spent much time in Congress, most of the seats are filled by politicians. Some are really men and women, but they're politicians. There's very few statesmen and leaders. Troy Nehls was military. He was a major in the Wisconsin National Guard. He's got 2 Bronze Stars, and he was a sheriff for many years. He knows how to conduct an investigation. When he started doing his own investigation, this is in the movie, into January 6th, when he criticized Nancy Pelosi, under Nancy Pelosi, the Capitol Police raided his congressional office. They came in secret on a holiday weekend on Thanksgiving. They thought they wouldn't get caught, but Troy had a staffer who stayed to work through the weekend, and he caught him. And what Troy believes they were trying to do is to get blackmail information on him to get him to stand down investigating J6. So this is the congressman that invited us to screen this for Congress. That morning of the screening, they were worried because so many people had RSVP'd, they didn't know how they were going to hold them all. When the screening actually happened, the room was half full. And the congressmen that were there, and there's some great ones there, it was just a handful. But the folks that stayed to watch the movie were blown away. I mean, blown away. Tom Homan, Trump's former ICE director, was there. He was so moved after that. He was so angry. He was shaking. He's like, I've been a law enforcement professional for 34 years. Why am I having to get the facts on January 6th from a movie instead of the agencies that are supposed to be investigating and doing this? There was a congressman there who sits on the oversight committee. He says, I've never been briefed on any of these facts. And that was the reaction of the Congress. So now they know, and even if they didn't make it, and a lot of congressmen sent their staffers there to take notes, and the staffers were so moved. I mean, they're crying. The movie moves people to tears, and they were crying, and they went back to tell their bosses and write briefs on it. But for those congressmen that weren't there and didn't send their staffers, they can get a copy of the movie or a link to the screener from Troy Nehls' office. I highly advise them to do that, because the truth and the facts, this film it not only knocks down so many lies, but it opens the door to where a real investigation needs to go. And if Congress isn't going to do it, then probably it's the military that's going to need to step in and do it, because you're just going to see stuff in here. Like I said, this was a psychological operation that was logistically run with military precision. You know, they say Ray Epps acted alone. Now you're going to see him. He's got a whole detail of 8 people that diddy-mow him out of there just after they popped red smoke, which means red smoke is avalanche smoke. It means get out. Everything you thought you knew about January 6th, when you see this movie, it'll blow your mind.
It seems to me, I love that you did this, and I love that you put this together and did it in a moving way so people are actually affected by the information, because sometimes you just want to take people and slap them because they keep repeating the lies, but they don't know why they keep repeating the lies. and the truth is right in front of us. I thought that they wanted all the attention on what they dreamed up about January 6th, because they didn't want the attention on the dual electoral college vote rolls that came in, and that's why the people were there. They just wanted the electoral college votes read, because there was dual from the states, from a lot of states, they had dual records going on, and so it was like, just like you said, a psychological operation to put all the attention on all the lies, right? And then, of course, demonize.
So absolutely, you just nailed it. There was a two-part operation. The first part, the short term, was to do exactly that. It was to make sure that they could terminate any investigation into the contested ballots in the swing states.
Yes.
That was job number one, and it did that brilliantly. Yeah. What you'll see in the film is just as they stood up and they voted for the first vote to investigate the first state, a flare goes up over the Capitol building. That's when the breach happens, and that's when they break. And they break for a little over 3 hours. And when they come back, they do a 180. They broke. There was a standing ovation because there was going to be investigation. And the House was cheering. And when they came back, there was no resistance whatsoever. They just steamrolled right after them. So you look at who benefits. Who benefits from this? It was people that were seeking to take over the government.
Right.
You can say Nancy Pelosi and her whole team. I will say that Republican leadership is noticeably missing in any resistance to do the right thing.
Well,
remember,
both parties.
we did in the Congress, hoping that they would have a real J6 hearing. We were promised that.
Right.
Not only did that not happen, they still haven't released all the footage from the Capitol building.
They can't. It would vilify them if they did. So they can't, to keep the lies going. I'm really appreciative that you guys did this, and it says a lot. I've had Nick on before, and Nick Searcy, and actor, and it's powerful when you guys can do these projects, and I really appreciate you guys doing this. Where can people see it? War on Truth?
Oh, you just go to the warontruthmovie.com, thewarontruthmovie.com. And I have to tell you, if it wasn't for His Glory Ministry getting behind, helping us get this movie made, this story never would have been told. Really? And it's because they saw Nick, they knew our work, and they said, God calls us to speak the truth. And that's where we got the name of the title for the movie, The War on Truth. Because we're interviewing all these people that are in prison for over 2 years just waiting for trial, and they're all Christians.
Oh, my gosh. I love it. Chris, thank you.
God bless you.
Chris, you're the best. Thank you. Appreciate you. Chris Burgard, director. Appreciate you. Be right back. Kate Daly Show. Don't go anywhere.
Your family still matters. Paid for food storage, violence.
It was once said,